Good morning, Besta, and good morning, Margie. How is everybody doing? Okay, just making sure that the computer's good. Hi, Linda. I found out a couple of things from last week's thing. I needed a new cord for my charger. And yeah, so it had nothing to do with like my computer per se, but it had everything to do with what I was hooking into it. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday morning with me. We are going to get back to some basics. And what I mean by that is that I have noticed in our community group, our private quilt card group, that there are a lot of crafters who are new to quilt card making, and they all of these patterns are new to them. So I thought we would go back to the basics, pick out one traditional pattern that we can build other patterns from, and maybe that will help make it easier. And we're going to work with some larger pieces so that your hands don't feel like you're all thumbs, okay? So with the prep sheet that I gave yesterday in a post, we're going to get 4 quilt blocks from just those pieces that I gave you. So it's nice when we can get more than just one card, and especially to know that out of 1 4-inch square piece of designer series paper, how far can that go? So I hope that you're going to enjoy it. Again, I am working with the Bauble Blooms bundle, and since I've been working with it, I've got some things that I want to share with you that I have learned. Sometimes it takes me a little longer than others to catch on, but once I do learn those things, it makes the process so much more enjoyable. I don't have to get frustrated and like set a stamp set aside because I struggled with it. So I can't wait to share that with you. So while I am turning the camera around, please say good morning to each other, greet each other, and then we'll get started. Okay, just got to rearrange some things on my workspace here to make it a little easier. And then once I get this all set up also, I can see who's jumped on and say good morning to you. Okay, let's see if that's good. Let's see if I can bring it down just a little bit. There we go. I'll get my t-shirt out of the way, and let's kind of zoom in a little bit. There we go. That looks good. And then bring in some pieces that we're going to be working with. Now we're going to cut these together, okay? If you're just watching, you might want to just grab a little, some paper and a pen so that you can write some things down if you want to. I will work on a PDF for these blocks, and that way you can save them. But if you want to write some measurements down or some cutting instructions down while we're going along so that you can go back and work on the projects, that's great. So let's see who's all here. Hi, Barb from Ontario. Hi, Sherry. Yes, it is exciting when you can get 4. Hi, Linda. And Linda, keep count, you guys. That's 2. Hi, Ginger. And Ginger's watching from San Antonio. Ginger, we're thinking about everybody in Texas with all the flash flooding that is going on there in your state. Hi, Marianne and Beth. Hey, Beth is watching from Maine, you guys. We are like all over. Hi, Kathy and Tina, Diane, Eleanor's watching from Southeast Connecticut. We are reaching far and wide, you guys. Hi, Claudia and Kathy and Karen and Ruby. Hey, Kay. We got the Hoosier State in the house. There's our third Linda. Hi, Barb. It's so good to see everybody here. Hi, Peggy and Janice. So I'm hoping that I got everybody. If not, I will go back when I read the comments and say good morning to you. And Deborah's here from Virginia Beach and Pennsylvania. This is so amazing. Hi, Carol. Okay, and Karen from Texas. So, Bauble Blooms. This, I was really drawn to this because of the die. That was my first draw, was this, oops, where is it? I think I have it over here on my, by my cutting station because I was working with it so much. The size of this die really appealed to me because it's wide enough here in the center that I knew I could put a quilt star or something in it. So my first draw was this bauble. And as I played with the stamp set, you'll notice that there's like three steps to completing the bauble, which I will show you right here. So you have your, I'll just hold it like this. So you have, what I do is the first step is I do my greenery and then my outline and then the fill in. And what I want to share with you is if once you've got your greenery stamped, if you take the photopolymer die and just by itself line it up on top of your the first step that you did, and then place your block over it and pick it up, and especially if your block is straight, then going back over it lines things up really well. The first time, or a couple of times I've used it, there are these two little dots in the image that can help you line up the stamp. Well, that was all well and good. But I found that if instead of just putting the second step on my block any old way and then trying to line up those 2 points, if I just placed it right on top, like let's take the second step, the outline. So what I mean by this is if I've got my greenery, if I line up those 2 dots first and then pick up the stamp with my block, and my block I know is not crooked or anything, then going back to it seemed to be easier. Okay, so that's like the first aha moment that I've had in the last week. And then the second aha moment is find the color that you're using to fill in. And if stamping it is just too much stress because of getting it lined up, color it. That is going to save you so much frustration. So get your outline done and then color in those areas. I was getting really good at getting the first 2 steps done, but then when I would come back to fill it in, I was off just a little bit. So that's when I brought in my blends, and what I was doing was I was filling in the areas that I missed just to kind of, fix it. And then I thought, why am I doing this? Why didn't I just color it in to begin with? And then I don't have to worry about lining everything up, because I just couldn't get it to come out perfect every single time. So, hey, just do your outline and then color in the areas, and it's easy peasy, and you're not going to get frustrated. And you'll enjoy the process and the bundles so much more. Okay, so those were some things that I came across. Again, I don't always get the aha moments from the very get-go. It takes putting myself through a little bit of frustration to finally get these. Hi, Sandy. How's everything in Illinois? Hi. Hey, Sharon's in here, and Carolyn and Diane. So those were just some things that I wanted to share with you as we get going. Okay, so I have some baubles already made for my blocks. You don't have to do ornaments. This is going to work for anything you've got. Maybe you made a cluster around a sentiment label. You know, whatever your focal piece is going to be is great. And this will be good for so many different occasions, okay? Special occasions, non-occasions, it'll be I think one of your go-to things. I also went ahead and I played around with some heat embossing. I'm not very good at it, but I do love the results. And my Versamark pad needs re-inked, but loved the process, loved the gold on the white, and so I have some of those ready to go. Let's get back to basics, okay? So the first traditional pattern that we're going to work with for today is called a basic, is just the 4-patch, okay? So keep that in mind. Again, this is going to give us 4 blocks, and then these 2 pieces will give us what we need to finish those blocks, okay? This 8x8 that I have is if you're wanting some stability to your quilt block, because we're working on, because I'm working with designer series paper, these layers are not that heavy. And once you quilt them, it seems to like just kind of thin the paper out even more. So depending on how you're going to use your quilt block, you might want to put a backing on it just to give it some stability. I'm going to show you some examples at the end of some different card base ideas that you can use. And for a couple of the easel cards, I needed some stability behind my quilt block to help make it stand. So this is optional, but if you need it, know that you will need a 4-inch square underneath it, or you can go to 4 1/8 to create a really tiny, have a little peekaboo border around your quilt block. I found that I used a backing for some, and I didn't need a backing for others because I was putting the quilt block right down onto the card base. Okay, so let's do some cutting, okay? And as we cut, we're going to put our piles together. The thing is, you're going to start out with the same piles. But then when we start working with each pile, we're going to cut a little bit differently. Okay? Hi, Debbie. And hey, Melinda. Okay, so let's bring in our cutter. And the first thing that we're going to do is out of this 8x8 background. Now you'll notice again, I am still working with the Seasons of Elegance designer series paper. Beautiful, beautiful paper. It carried over from last year. And I stamped all my baubles right on this this is the side that doesn't have the gold on it. Love stamping on designer series paper. Does anybody else love to stamp on a piece of designer series paper that has a really pretty background? It just can do so many things. So what we're going to do is we need 4 4-inch squares. Okay, so I'm going to cut this in half at 4. And then we're going to take these 2 pieces and we're going to cut them, we're going to turn it long ways so that we can cut them again at 4. Okay, so that one 8x8 is giving you your 4 bases for your quilt blocks. So I'm going to set them over here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Get my piles going here. My computer's kind of in the way, but I got 4 piles going on. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Jean. Okay, so we're just getting started, so you can jump in and get caught up rather easily. So what we did already is we took that 8x8 piece of designer series paper, we cut it in half at 4, and then cut those 2 halves in at 4 again to get 4 4-inch squares. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to stack my 2 4-inch squares. They're pretty close to being identical. If you don't want to cut them at the same time, you can do them one at a time, but these are pretty good. So what I'm going to do, you know what, I'm off just a little bit. Let's just do, I'm going to do them one at a time. So we're going to cut these in half at 2. So cut it in half at 2. Stack them. Line them up. Put them back in your trimmer. And cut at 2 again. So now we have 4 2-inch squares. And each stack is going to get one of these. Repeat that with your other piece of designer series paper. So we're going to cut it in half at 2. Stack them, turn them, line them up, put it back in at 2. Cut again, and each stack gets one. Okay? So now, really, and there's not, as we work on each one, you're going to see that we're not going to draw too many grids. I think on the last one, we are going to put something down on our base, but we really don't even need to do that for the first 3. So the very first pile, leave these all square. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, what we're going to do, actually number 2 and number 3, what we're going to do is we're going to take these 2-inch squares and we're going to cut them diagonally. So put it on point in your trimmer with a corner in your cutting track. And to avoid crinkling up the corner, put your blade down anywhere within the square that's on point, and then just slice up and down. So you're going to have 2 triangles of whatever your DSP number 2 is, and 2 of whatever your number 3 is. Okay, so put all of those with one of your background squares. Again, we're going to do the same thing with our 3rd set. So we're going to be doing 4 different quilt blocks, but they're all variations of one very simple one. And that will be the very first one that we do. Okay, so whoops. There we go. So there's our 3rd set. And now for the last ones, okay, what we're going to do is we are going to cut these at 15/16. So that is one line short of the 1-inch mark. So we're going to put that in at 15/16. Okay, and we need 2 squares that are 15/16. Gonna have just a little tiny scrap there. And then do that again with your green, and I want some of this gold in mine. So and put it back over there at 15/16. Okay, and now what we're going to do is, where is my cheat sheet? Hold on. Okay, so we've got the 15/16, and what we're going to do with each one of these is we're going to cut them diagonally, but in both directions. This is the one block that is got the smaller pieces, okay? Had to do at least one to show you something just that looks a little bit more complicated, but it really isn't. And I like to put my flat side up there against those bumpers. So the flat side's across the top, my point is in the cutting track. And we're going to do that to all of these pieces, to these 15/16 inch squares. Okay. So we're doing all this cutting together. And while these pieces are tiny, those of you who have been making quilt blocks with me know that we've worked with tinier pieces. So this really is not that bad. But I wanted at least one block that was a little bit more advanced to show you just the possibilities. Okay. And okay, we just got this one and then one more. And we're going to use all of these for that last block. Okay. Ooh, just a couple more slices. And we're going to be ready to go. Where's that other big one? Alrighty. So there's our pieces that will go with this fourth base right here. Okay, so, oops, I got a few more triangles. I'd be wondering where those are. And these two pieces, hang on to these. Okay, I'll show you how I use them in one of my card bases. So really we had very, very little scrap. Hi Marilyn, how are ya? Hi Colleen. Hey Peggy. Okay, so let's do one more thing. Okay, let's do one more thing while we've got our trimmer out. Because you may want to, this is going to be up to you. If you want to use a pencil and a ruler, or if you just want to use your scoring blade, okay, to put some markings down on that fourth base that gets all those little triangles. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in at 2 inches. And then you could make a little tick mark with your scoring blade. Get your cutting blade out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a tick mark in my cutting track so I know the halfway point. And then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to do it again on the other side. So I have found the halfway point on all 4 sides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scoring blade, and I want to score from each one of these tick marks. So this is just going to put kind of like a grid, but it's going to let me know where I need to put those little tiny triangles. Okay, so using my scoring blade, I'm just going to go around, and what I'm doing is I am creating a diamond on my base. And get it as close as you can to being all lined up. Remember, we are going to be using these lines as a guide in how we're going to place those triangles. Okay. Again, you can use a pencil and a ruler. You're not going to have to, if you have to do any erasing, it's only because your line showed a little bit. But, so I don't know if you can see, but I've got a score line, and I've got my diamond right in the center of that base. Okay, I'm waiting for Facebook to catch up to see if you can see the lines or not. Okay, let's move on. So that, everyone, I think we can put the trimmer away. All right, so let's get started. Let's do the most basic square that all these patterns are going to derive from. Bring in my silicone mat. Get my adhesive. I've got a fine tip applicator for the smaller triangles when I go to adhere them, but I can use my Tombow for all the other pieces. Okay. Sure it's not clogged up. And let's bring in number 1. This is so simple. Okay. So you've got your 4-inch base, and what you're going to do is you're going to adhere your 2-inch blocks in opposite corners to create a 4-patch. A 4-patch means that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants. Okay? And we really don't even need to draw any lines for these to go down. As long as we're square and we work up in the corner, our pieces should line up. Okay? So, no need to be drawing any guidelines. Okay? And your quilting will really change this very simple block. And when you put your focal piece on there, a very simple block becomes a very pretty block. And this designer series paper is just stunning with the gold foil in it. Now, if your points don't match up perfectly in the center, it's okay, because guess what? My Bauble's gonna go there. So, I mean, I'm okay that it doesn't match perfectly. So there is block number 1. Easy peasy, right? Basic 4-patch. Now, we're going to create another block off of that 4-patch. We're going to bring in number 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to create like a square. Well, not really a square in a square, because our center is actually going to look like a diamond. So what we're going to do is you're going to take one of your triangles, your half square triangles, and I am going to put two of the same color in opposite corners, and then my other designer series paper in these corners. Okay, and we're going to adhere them. These are very simple quilt blocks. Again, whoever came up with the 4-patch, I wonder if they had any idea how many quilt patterns over the years have derived from their one simple patchwork. And remember, back when quilts, you know, they were utilized. They had a, you know, they weren't for hanging on the wall or saving because of the memory who made it for you. They were meant to be used. So the simpler the pattern, the faster they went together and the quicker they could be used. But I just wonder sometimes, did the creator of a quilt block, could they have imagined at all what it would be like for in art today? You know what I mean? All the beautiful patterns that are just works of art. So the simple 4-patch really has evolved over the years. Okay, so we've got that and that. As soon as I get this red one on, this last one, I'm gonna just kind of glance over to the comments and see if I'm missing any questions. I'm making sure that my edges are all the way out and that my base is being covered up. And there is our second quilt block. Again, our bauble is going to fill in the space, and the quilting is going to give it, every time we do something more to our quilt block, it's going to elevate it. Okay, and that's always so much fun to me. Hi, Pam. Where did you get the folder or the holder for your fine tip glue? Do you mean this right here? This is from the Hive, I think it's called. I believe she's a demonstrator. Somebody that's on. Is Tony on? I know somebody probably can help me out with it. But you can go to her website, and she's got all kinds of holders that you can purchase, and she's got all other kinds of things. Here's another thing that I got from her to make sure that my envelope fits through this slot, to know if I'm going to need extra postage. She's got all kinds of different little storage bins and things like that. So the Country Hive, I just saw it. Yes, Beth. Oh, and Lynn. Oh, great. I am so glad that you guys know what I'm talking about when I can't spit it out. So it's the Country Hive. Okay. And you can get them in different colors. She's got all kinds of novelty glue holders. It's amazing. This one's just kind of handmade. It's out of PVC. It was made for me. And it's just out of like PVC fittings. It needs cleaned up. And then I put some designer series paper around it. And very simple too. And that holds my Tombow. So, you know, people are so clever. I don't know why I can't think of these things. So, okay, so we're done with number 2. And let's bring in number 3. Now we're going to take these half square triangles, and we're going to change the direction that we're putting them down. Okay, so here we put our 90-degree angles all the way in the corners. Okay, so that's number 2. We're going to create a pinwheel with number 3. So, where is my pinwheel? I always need to look at one so that I make sure that I'm putting it down in the right. Okay. So instead of our 90-degree angle going up here in the corner, it's going to come down here to the middle. So if we picture that we have this in half, it's going to sit down here in the middle at our halfway mark instead of being up in the corner. Okay? And then if I rotate my block and I come in with my red and we alternate, again, as we're turning the block, we're going right to the same place to put our pieces down, and then we only have to remember one place that it has to go. Okay? I need to get out my little turntable. Does anybody have a rotating mat? Because this really comes in handy when you're turning things around. But that's how we're going to get our pinwheel. Okay? So again, this is just a variation of that 4 patch. It's just that we're changing the position of those half square triangles. So once you've got the idea of where they go, then go ahead and put them down. And while these blocks are so simple, they could give just that perfect amount of quilty, that element that you're looking for in your cards. And the pieces are big, they're easy to handle, and you can create quick and easy quilt blocks. Okay. I chose to go with a 4-inch block just to help make it easier to show you how to do it. You can change how big your pattern is. If you know the halfway points of whatever your beginning square is, then you can figure out what sizes everything else is that you need. But this is really easy to teach, going big, and then you take it from there. So my point is going up into the corner. And you see how my points are all coming together in the center. Okay. So my point is going up in the corner. We didn't have to mark anything. As long as I know that my pieces are square, then they should just fall into line. And there is our 3rd quilt block, simple pinwheel. Okay, and I'm always, I'm testing out. Doesn't that make a really pretty background for your bauble or for whatever your focal piece is? And remember, you've got to quilt it yet. So again, each step that we take, building upon our quilt block, just enhances it even more. I know, Doris. As many times as I've done them, I find that I do the same thing. Okay, let's move on to our last one. Now, this is the one that has the smaller pieces, right? But it is so easy. So we're going to take our triangles and just going to spread them out there. So we're going to be working along our line that we made for ourselves that we can follow along with. Okay, so it might be easier to put this down on point so that is a straight line. And what we're going to do, I'm going to hold it right here so that you can see what I'm doing. And then we can just work around our base there. Excuse me. So we're going to take, I'm going to go red, green, or green, red. I'm just going to alternate my colors, right? And my first triangle is I'm going to put my first and my third triangles, so they should be the same color. I'm going to have them with my peaks pointing up, okay? And you can see that I'm going all the way to the outside. And this line right here is just telling me where those have to be. My color in between is going to go right here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work around our diamond. And now when I turn it, remember I'm going opposite colors. So I'm going to start with my red. And I like to do my two outside triangles first so that I can make the one in the middle fit. That would go here. My green one is going to point down. And we're just going to work around our base. Okay? So this, I'll try not to go too slow. Oh, I think I want my other glue. I don't know. I might just try to make this bottle work. Okay. Or what I can do is I can just show you the finished block so that you don't have to watch me put all of these little tiny triangles down. But let's get a couple sides under our belt, okay? Let's do a couple of the sides together so that you get the hang of it. And I need a red one for the middle. And again, the peak of this triangle is going to point inward instead of outward. And see how by putting these two down first, this other one I can make it go right there in the center. If I have to push it a little more one way than the other, then that's okay. So let's just get a couple more of these down. And then I'm going to show you what to do with the remaining triangles. Because you're going to have some triangles left over once you just work around your diamond here. Again, the ones on the outside, your peaks are going up. Your triangle in the middle, the peak goes down. If you used a pencil, as long as you're right on that line, you won't have any, you shouldn't have very much erasing to do. And so we just continue to go around there. Now, once you've got your diamond filled in, let me show you the finished. Oh, I already put my bauble on this one. Okay. Let me just make sure. Okay. So you've got your diamond filled in. Whatever color is in the middle here, I want you to take that same colored triangle and we're going to put it up in the corner. Now the original pattern, I've seen it called two different things. I've heard it called a magic star, And I've seen it called a magic circle when you've just got this here. But it left me with triangles left over, and I wanted to use up as much of the designer series paper as we started out with. So I took those extra triangles and I put them up in the corners to just kind of create a new little variation of the magic star or magic circle, whatever you prefer to call it. So this is how quilt patterns, new quilt patterns are created. They work off of a traditional block and they just change it. So, you know, it's just, that's the fun of it. So I'll just do this other corner so that you can see what I mean by, or the placement. So I'm just bringing the same color that's in the middle here out to the corner. That way I don't have too much of one color in the corner. I've got both. And so when you're done doing this, and I'm sorry I attached my bauble already, but this is the pattern that you get. You are going to lose, when you do your center, you may lose a little or a lot, depending how big your focal piece is, the little points, but you still get a really pretty quilt pattern all around it. Okay, so those are going to be our squares that we're working with. Okay, so I will finish that last square. And now the next thing for you to do is you need to quilt or emboss your quilt blocks. Okay, so here are our quilt blocks. And just imagine this one already being done. Okay, so there's our very basic quilt blocks, all based on the 4-patch. Oh, Beth. Yeah, you know, that to me is so much fun. Getting into those numbers that we're not, you know, used to working with. And it's amazing to me how a 1/16 of an inch can really make a difference on how well that triangle fits into a space. Sure, we could have gone bigger and we might have to overlap, but it's the piecer in me that looks for certain things to line up. So once I got over, like, kind of being afraid of working with numbers that I'm not used to, I love it. I can't wait to see what is that magic number that's going to make those pieces all touch each other and nothing's overlapping, nothing is short. So I love it, and I hope that you guys like it too, because it's just so satisfying when everything matches up. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to quilt your blocks. Now, I used a very, I didn't use the subtle embossing folder, but I used the type worn embossing folder for all of my blocks, and I'm going to get these out and hopefully not lose the order. So it's got a little bit of texture. It also gave me the feel of how this gold foil is just kind of like if they scrunched it up and just put it down in pieces. So there's my my diamond. This one here is my pinwheel, so that would go there. Here's that really simple one, but it's just so beautiful. Got some texture going on, which helps fill in these open spaces that don't have color. And then you've already seen the fourth one. So you get your blocks quilted. Okay, and then now we're going to look at some card bases. And I didn't want to tell you how to finish your quilt blocks. I want to see what you come up with, but there are some fun folds and there are some basic card layouts that really will highlight a square, especially a quilt square, a quilt block, really nicely. Okay, so let's talk about our bases. Okay, let's start with the first one. So my first card base was 4 1/4 by 11, scored in half at 5 1/2. And then I turned it into a book binding fun fold by scoring it again at 4 1/4, which leaves a nice square to put our 4-inch block on and still leaves me a border. Okay? So it still leaves me a border. You could even put a 4 1/8 inch mat underneath it if you didn't want to see all that white. And now I did cut a 1-inch by 4-inch piece of the Designer Series paper to go on the spine of the book binding fun fold, okay? And what you end up doing is you put adhesive on the back of the spine and close your card, and that's what gives you your spine here, or your fun fold, and then it opens like this, just like a book. Okay, hence the name book binding fun fold. So I thought that's a really fun and simple card base to showcase a quilt block. So that's what I used for my first one. And I didn't finish them because I wanted you to show you, especially like on the next one. Remember, you know, you're always just one score line away from a fun fold. And that's so true. But we can add another score line to this fun fold and get another fun fold. It's just kind of like quilt blocks. Add one thing, do something else, and it's something new, okay? So that was number one. That was an idea I had. Where's my number two? Okay, so for number two, I did the book binding fun fold again. Remember those two pieces that I had left over? I used them to fill up the spine. Okay. I quilted them first so that they had texture to match my quilt block. But here's where we're just another score line away from another fun fold. So I did a score line from the bottom left to the upper right. Now this becomes an easel card to put, I think I was going to put number 2 on here. Now remember when I showed you the 8x8 piece of cardstock that you could use to stabilize your quilt blocks? You're definitely going to want to do that. Now I had a piece of red left over. You're going to want to stabilize this block in order to help it stand up. You don't want a flimsy quilt block. You need some stability. So that's going to help this right here. So I put the backing on that. Now remember, you would only want to put adhesive on the bottom part because you don't want any adhesive here. Okay, but now we've turned our book binding fun fold into a book binding easel card. And remember those little labels that I showed you in the beginning? Putting some dimensionals on the back would create my stopper so that my easel stands up, and then for display on your recipient's mantle or wherever they showcase their Christmas cards that they're getting in the mail, it'll stand up really beautifully. Okay, so that was my idea for one of the other quilt blocks. The first one, I just glued half of my sentiment onto my ornament. Oh, I gotta tell you, this is where that aha moment came in on coloring in to fill in your outline pieces. But because before I knew that I could go in and I filled it in, I was pretty off on that last fill-in stamp, right? I was pretty off. And so to hide it from you guys, I just put my sentiment over it so you couldn't see it. Now I went back in once I discovered coloring and I touched up my flowers even more. But this was placed here for a reason, because I wanted to hide something. So remember, you've got that option. So there's number 2. Number 3, I thought, you know what? How about just your standard card base? 4 1/4 by, 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. So just your basic card, right? But the Polaroid layout is so good for this. And what do I mean by Polaroid? Well, and I don't have to really have a backing on this quilt block because it's going to get adhered right down to my card base. But if you put your quilt block up towards the top, I've got an equal border on 3 sides. This reminds you of the Polaroids you could take because you have this wide bottom down here. Okay, so that's a good spot to pop up your sentiment. Finish it off with some gems, and here's a whole nother layout. Okay, so that's number 3. And then number 4, let's bring back in this card base, because we're going to take this same card base, we're going to turn it to landscape. And what I did was, for the next card, it doesn't matter which end you choose to work from, but I cut from the score line all the way down to the bottom at 1 1/4 inches. So it created a flap over here, right? So let me show you that. So here's that card. Now what I did was I glued the flap closed. I put a piece of designer series paper here to embellish that fold. But again, we're only 1 score line away from turning this into another fun fold. So this is 4 1/4 inches wide. I scored it at 2 1/8, which is half, and burnished it. So now my easel is going to sit this way. I did put a backing on this quilt block because I needed to have some stability. Now this can go right here. Okay. Again, I'm going to use my sentiment as my stopper. And you'll finish off the inside if you want to put another layer of designer series paper, however you want to finish off the inside. But now here is a whole nother layout. So, well, this one had the Polaroid on it. This one turned into an easel card. So these are just some different layouts that I thought really showcase a quilt block well. And it becomes the focal point of your card. And I don't know how well you can see that, but it's just going to sit like this. And that stopper will catch it from sliding down, but you can fold it just like you would your card to mail it. Okay? So that was just another idea for a card layout. So I don't know what layout you're gonna, how you're gonna finish your quilt cards, but I did want to give you some ideas on some different ways to showcase them. And then I can't wait to see what your cards turn out like. So in the private group that we have called Quilt Cards and More, it's a private community, and there are some join questions. So we can weed out those who are just like fishing and not in the group for the right reasons. We share all of our cards over there. Now, you can certainly share your cards in the comments underneath this live. That is a great place that you can share, but if you might also want to join the group if you haven't already, and see what everybody else is doing. So these don't have to be Christmas cards. This layout will work for any occasion. And I just want to go back real quick and show the different cards that we've done since we started working with the Bauble Blooms bundle. So our very first card was this fun fold. Okay. And how it opened like that. And we actually did put a sawtooth star quilt pattern in the center of our bauble. It also makes a great tag or a Christmas tree ornament. Okay, so that was week 1 using this bundle. These are distracting to me. Let's get these out of the way. So this was week 1. Okay, and then last week we worked on a herringbone border. So we have our quilty element, but I was wanting to focus on the bauble and how it was designed to be used by whoever designed it at Stampin' Up. So there is a die that will cut out some of these elements here, and I just built upon it instead of just stamping it and leaving it this way. Okay, so we did that last week, did some embossing on this panel here, and that was week 2 of the bundle. And now for week 3, we're just learning a basic 4 patch and how it can, different variations of it can be created, and then using those quilt blocks as a background for our bauble. Okay, so just different ways to use this bundle. And I'm hoping that you're enjoying it. If it's not something that was on your radar, again, I got it strictly because I wanted the die. But I have had a lot of fun playing with the stamp set as well, to show you different ways to use it. Okay, so I've got 4 cards that I still have to finish. I had 8 total because I wanted to show you, what it would look like. But in today's playing, I just created 4 more bases, so I've got 4 more cards to make. So I'll do a giveaway of those 4 cards. And let's put 4 patch as the keyword. And these cards will find new homes. And I'll keep 4 to add to my Christmas card collection. We have been making a lot of Christmas cards, you guys. So by the time the end of this month is done, you should probably have anywhere, I don't know how many you've been making, but I know I've got quite a stack. And it's a really good start in July to already have this many Christmas cards done. So depending on how many you need, you can be done now, or you can be just on your way for whatever that total is that you normally send out every year. So I hope you enjoyed a Back to Basics class, and I hope that you've enjoyed seeing the Bauble Blooms bundle used yet again. Next week, we'll close out the month with another layout, and then I'll move on to something else. But I really wanted to get a good amount of time working with this bundle. And remember, if you don't have it, use what you have, okay? And it doesn't have to be Christmas. I love seeing it used in another way, something that you can use every day. Okay, so thank you again for being with me this Thursday, and I will catch you over in the group later, and I'll be working on that PDF that will have all 4 of these blocks for you, so you can add that to your library. Everybody have a really blessed day, and I'll be chatting with you soon, okay?